The airport bustled with the rush of the morning crowd, but for Maya Carter, this trip meant more than just another business flight. Clutched tightly in her hand was her boarding pass, not just a ticket to a seat, but a symbol of years of effort and quiet resistance. She wore a simple yet elegant dress, and in her eyes there was both fatigue and fierce determination. Every step she took carried the grace of a woman who earned her place, not through her skin tone, but through her achievements. She paused briefly at the security checkpoint. As the officer's eyes brushed over her, Maya recalled words she'd heard as a child. Work twice as hard for half the respect. She was used to these looks, but today there was an unusual calm within her, a sense that maybe, just maybe, this would be a day where she wouldn't have to justify herself. She moved forward, knowing she could be wrong. She was among the first to board. Her eyes quickly scanned for her seat. 2A window seat, first class, quiet luxury. As she settled in, she took a moment to look around. This wasn't about flaunting wealth. It was the calm of a position earned from within. She didn't want attention. She only wanted to exist in peace, quietly victorious. Just then, a woman entered the cabin, middle-aged, dressed ostentatiously, with an impatient look on her face. Walking down the narrow aisle, she drew eyes effortlessly. Her gaze locked onto Maya's seat, her brows furrowed. It wasn't hard to guess what she was thinking. That seat can't possibly be hers. The woman abruptly dropped her bag and turned to the flight attendant. Her voice was low but brimming with indignation. "There must be a mistake. That's my seat." The attendant politely asked for her boarding pass, checked it, and gently shook her head. "I'm sorry, ma'am, your seat is 3C. This is 2A, and it's occupied by the correct passenger." Maya watched the scene unfold in silence, her heart stirring beneath her calm exterior. What could she say? Sometimes even a single word was too much. A rhetorical question crossed her mind. Who gets to decide who deserves what? She remained quiet. Because this wasn't a battle of words, it was a battle of presence. When the woman turned to Maya, her eyes didn't just question the seat, they questioned her existence. "I'm sorry, but are you really flying in this class?" So much meaning packed into one sentence. It wasn't a question, it was a judgment. Maya didn't break eye contact. She smiled. "Yes, this is my seat." Shock quickly gave way to anger on the woman's face. Her lips quivered. "This is ridiculous. I always fly this airline. This has never happened before." And then she pulled the familiar move. "Call security." Around them, other passengers turned their heads, watching. The flight attendant tried to calm the woman, but it was no use. Her voice was rising, and Maya's patience was being tested. Another question crossed Maya's mind. Is silence a form of dignity or a form of surrender? She gripped the armrests and closed her eyes, took a deep breath. This woman's outrage would not shake her. When two security officers entered the cabin, the air turned cold. Maya held her head high. She knew she didn't owe anyone an explanation, but still, in the depths of her heart, a flicker of defiance stirred. Again, she thought, why is it always me who has to explain? As Maya noticed the security officers approaching, a familiar heaviness settled in her chest. It was the same invisible weight she had carried for years, the one she had always been forced to suppress. She adjusted her seatbelt with 2 fingers, never breaking eye contact with the woman. Her heart seemed calm, but her mind echoed with memories of similar moments, from being kicked out of a VIP lounge on a high school trip, to being followed in a store just for glancing at a wallet. And now she wasn't just up against a woman summoning authority, she was staring down the system itself. But this time, she wasn't going to retreat. The woman's voice had grown shrill, her words sharp. "I came early, I checked in, I bought this seat. How could this happen? There must be a mistake." But the unspoken message was louder. "What is that girl doing here?" Her eyes scanned Maya's skin, her textured hair, even her suitcase, trying to assert control over them. Yet every movement Maya made said something else entirely. "I'm not just defending my seat, I'm defending my right to exist here." The security officers tried to handle the situation professionally. After checking the woman's boarding pass, one of them furrowed his brow and gently shook his head. "Ma'am," he said in a polite but firm tone, "your seat is 3C. This seat belongs to another passenger." The woman paused for a moment, then turned to Maya again. Her gaze wasn't seeking information. It demanded an explanation. But Maya, through her silence, was already saying enough. I don't owe you an explanation. The tension in the cabin was thick. Some passengers held their breath, watching in silence. A woman in the front row clutched her purse tighter. Another turned to her phone to avoid eye contact. In those moments, Maya heard her own inner voice. Am I going to be treated like the problem again? Am I expected to respond with grace yet again? Not this time. This time she wouldn't apologize. This time she wouldn't explain. This time she wouldn't convince. Because she had spent too many years being made to feel like she didn't belong. And today, this was going to be different. This silence was not submission. It was protest. The woman's insistence was starting to test even the officer's patience. I'm sorry, one of them said again, but our system clearly shows this passenger is in the correct seat. Still, the disbelief on the woman's face lingered. It was as if the system must have glitched. Because in her mind, a young black woman couldn't possibly belong in first class. Maya exhaled slowly and wondered, when will I be seen as normal here? She knew this wasn't just a moment. It was the shadow of a lifetime. One of the flight attendants, realizing the situation needed higher authority, walked briskly toward the cockpit. Maya followed her with her eyes, and a thought bubbled up that she couldn't suppress. Why do I still need someone else's validation? Isn't my name, my ticket, my effort enough? The rage she felt wasn't loud. It was quiet, buried deep, rising from the little girl who had once just wanted to be seen without suspicion. And in this silence, there was a different kind of strength, a quiet that didn't ask for understanding, a storm held beneath the surface. Suddenly, the cabin door opened, and the pilot stepped in. His steps were calm but commanding. With his gray hair and sharp gaze, he exuded authority, not one of arrogance, but one rooted in quiet power. Captain, if you wouldn't mind, the flight attendant began, but the pilot lifted his hands from his pockets and walked directly toward Maya. Passengers leaned forward. All eyes converged. The pilot gently placed a hand on Maya's shoulder. Is there a problem here? He asked, voice warm but unflinching. The woman blinked at him, stunned. I'm sorry, is this young lady with you? She asked. Without a pause, the captain replied, this young lady in seat 2A is my daughter, Maya Carter. A wave of realization passed through the cabin. The silence that had hung heavy now seemed tinged with shame. A few people exhaled. The woman turned her eyes away. The pilot continued, she's in the right seat, and today I have the honor of flying her myself. Something inside Maya cracked, but it wasn't pain. It was release. The invisible weight she'd carried for so long dissolved, if only slightly, in those words. Her eyes welled up, but she didn't cry. She just nodded, slowly. When her father looked at her, generations of unspoken truths met in that gaze. Do you see, Dad, she thought, today you didn't just show me my place. You showed them. As the woman slipped quietly back to her assigned seat, a few passengers gave Maya subtle nods. No applause, but acknowledgement. This is what a quiet revolution looks like. A bowed head, a knowing smile, and most importantly, a woman who did not move. That seat was no longer just a seat. It was a stance, a reminder, a legacy. Maya squeezed her father's hand. Thank you, she whispered. He smiled. You were always meant to be here. Before the plane took off, the silence in the cabin became almost tangible. Everyone was in their seats, but nothing felt the same. The woman had turned her head toward the window, buried in silence. For her, this might be remembered as a misunderstanding, perhaps just a mix-up. But for Maya, this moment marked a sharp turning point in her life, because for the first time, she had shattered a wall in front of everyone, with nothing but silence. Before the seatbelt sign turned off, Maya looked out the window. The lights lining the runway seemed to symbolize the path she had walked from her past to the present. A small voice whispered inside her, you earned this. Not just this seat, but this peace too. She felt warmth in her chest, perhaps breathing this freely for the first time. She had overcome the weight of 1,000 microaggressions, 1,000 doubts, 1,000 stares silently questioning, are you sure you belong here? Before returning to the cockpit, her father paused. He turned to Maya and asked with his eyes, are you okay? Maya simply nodded. But in that nod, there was no shame, no sadness. On the contrary, it was the graceful acceptance of a power long suppressed. Her father's eyes welled with tears too, but he didn't cry. In their silence, they said it all. No one will ever again expect us to justify our existence. When the flight attendant leaned in slightly and offered Maya a warm drink, she didn't just say thank you, her eyes spoke as well. In that glance, there wasn't a demand, but a reminder. See? Learn. Change. The attendant nodded shyly, realizing that sometimes the greatest lessons are found not in shouting, but in stillness. The passenger next to Maya turned to her and said a simple sentence. I'm proud of you. That sentence said more than 1,000 words ever could. As the plane climbed into the sky, Maya remembered the dreams she had as a child, looking up at the clouds. Back then, the sky meant freedom, limitlessness. But as she grew older, she realized the real limits were down here, in people's hearts, in their gazes, in their expectations. Now she had risen above those limits, and she finally understood. The sky belongs to everyone, but being able to live in it without having to prove you deserve it, that's a privilege. She thought about writing down what she felt, like an entry in a journal. Today I was silent, but everything spoke. My skin, my posture, my silence. They all shouted. And this time, no one could cover it up. This wasn't just a protest. This was a declaration of existence. And that declaration, left wordless, was a letter to the world. Mid-flight, she closed her eyes. In that moment, she didn't need to forgive anyone, nor defend herself. For the first time, simply existing was enough, and that awareness brought her an indescribable sense of freedom. This is who I am, she thought, and that's enough. Until now, she had always felt the need to prove something, but today she claimed not just her seat, but her worth. As the plane slowly descended into the clouds, Maya made a decision. To never forget this moment, she would write herself a letter on the same date every year. A reminder, that day you didn't back down. That day you stepped out of the shadow of the past and sat firmly in your own light. Because sometimes a transformation doesn't come from years of struggle, but from a single gaze, a single silence. When the plane landed, Maya slowly gathered her belongings. Even as she unbuckled her seatbelt, something was different about her. Her steps were clearer, her stance firmer. The young woman who once shrank away, avoided eye contact, was now only a shadow in the rear view. That shadow would now be the map for the journey she was about to chart. As she walked through the terminal, a fellow passenger gently touched her shoulder. It was good to witness, they said. No more words were needed. Maya turned and thanked them. But inside, another voice spoke. Witnessing is not enough. Now it's time to understand, to respect, to truly see. And from that moment on, Maya Carter was no longer just a passenger. She had become a quiet but powerful symbol of a new world. Because sometimes change begins not with the loudest voice, but with the deepest silence.